All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Market Close. We are here today on Monday, July 15th, 3:47 p.m. We've got a lot to talk about in the context of what's going on in the global capital equity markets. We had JPOW, who said some things. And I know in the morning I said, well, he probably is not going to say anything that important because he just did all that important stuff last week. He said something that was pretty important, furthering the argument that he is going to cut those rates into September. So nothing we haven't really heard before, but just again making the point that rate cuts are likely coming. We got to talk about that. Trump officially announces VP. We thought we would get the announcement at 4:30, but it came out basically 15 minutes ago, and it is officially JD Vance. JD Vance has been nominated by Donald Trump as the vice president of the Republican Party. Trump just won the official Republican nomination at the convention. He won like 20 minutes ago. He got the full delegates. I think he's giving a speech today. I might be wrong, and I'm going to find out in a little bit, and we'll stream it if he is, but he might be giving the speech a little bit later in the week. But the Republican National Convention has started, and JD Vance is going to be Trump's running mate. And then we have to talk about the actual market, because obviously we got a market that's hot right now. It's running. We're seeing a lot of momentum. Palantir not really holding that 29 level like we want to see, 28.72, but we did stay above 29 for a good, I would say, couple hours today, here and there, back and forth. 29.30 was the top, 28.72 right now. S&P, we touched 564, back to 560. So now we're up 0.10% instead of 1%, which is probably more reasonable, but still nice to see that we hit those levels. SoFi, phenomenal day, touched 740 three times today. 738 ending hopefully in about 12 minutes, about 5.8% up. Nike left for dead, down 2.7%. Tesla gave up most of its gains. Tesla touched 264, right back to 252, still up 2% of the day, but it is down. Robinhood, great day for Robinhood, up 6.49%, 23.73, touched 24.01 for a second, right back at 23.73 now. Bitcoin, really the leader of today, up 1.29%, 63,501. Celsius, we figured out what happened. They got I don't know if it's a downgrade, but they got a stock price target downgrade, even if the company itself was not downgraded, by TD Cowen to $68 from $85. And so that's likely what's causing a little bit of the pressure in the context of Celsius right there. Okay, so let's start off with JD Vance. I think that's the most important news. Let's see who the heck this guy is. I don't know him that well. I learned about him today. I've heard of him here and there, back and forth, but this is a very important decision, and obviously the market's going to be reacting to that. All right, we got a Trump statement on this right now. Let's go to it right now. So Donald Trump says, after lengthy deliberation and thought, and considering the tremendous talents of many others, I've decided that the person best suited to assume the position of VP is Senator JD Vance of Ohio. We're also going to talk about Ohio in a little bit because that is important. JD honorably served our country in the Marine Corps, graduated from Ohio State University in 2 years, summa cum laude, and is a Yale Law School graduate. That's also very impressive because JD grew up poor in the Rust Belt of Ohio. So the fact that he graduated Yale Law School is just incredible. His book, Hillbilly Elegy, became a major bestseller and movie. I found out about that today as well. I don't know if anyone watched it. Let me know in the chat. As it championed the hardworking men and women of our country. JD has a very successful business career in technology and finance, and now during the campaign will be strongly focused on the people he fought so brilliant for, the American workers and farmers in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Minnesota, and far beyond. Those 5 states Trump's mentioning at the end of that sentence. That's why I think they ultimately pick JD Vance. So my analysis, as I'm just learning about JD Vance, is I think these are the reasons why he picked him. Again, he grew up poor from Ohio. He can relate to sort of the average working person because he worked his way up and then he became, more educated in Yale Law School. So that's an important journey. He was a never Trumper in 2016. And then a few years ago, he decided to realize that Trump's policies aligned with his values. So he became Trump's VP. Now, here's the biggest thing. A lot of people don't know this one. JD Vance opposed a NATO no-fly zone over Ukraine. He said this in his March 2022 debate with the other Ohio candidates that were trying to be senator, because it wasn't in the U.S.'s best interest. He was one out of 5 people on that stage that says there is no reason why the United States should be basically battling it out with Russian jets just to protect this no-fly zone over Ukraine. Now, you can believe that's good or bad, but the point is that got the attention of Trump because Trump doesn't even believe we should be in Ukraine. Trump, he believes that this is Ukraine's problem, not America's problem. He definitely believes that NATO should not be funding Ukraine. So I think this also is what got Trump's attention, because he was looking for someone who is unequivocally America first. And that seemed like what JD Vance is representing. And then finally, he's from Ohio. Ohio has been a swing state for a very, very long time. It decided the 2016 election, or it was one of the states that decided it. 2020, I believe it went for Trump, but Biden ended up winning. But I believe, I don't know the exact number, but for a far majority of elections throughout the past 100 years, Ohio has been, if not the deciding state, one of 5 to 6 deciding states. Florida is up there. Wisconsin is up there. Minnesota is up there. But Ohio is very important. So it makes sense that he picked someone from Ohio. I feel like he's locking in that Ohio vote. It's going to be hard for Ohio people to go against JD Vance, given they know him so well. But that's going to be very important ultimately for Trump. What do you guys think? Was that a good pick or a bad pick? What do you think? I know a lot of people wanted Vivek. Not gonna lie, as an Indian myself, it would have been pretty cool for Vivek to win. I said on Twitter, I think Vivek would have got a lot of the Indians to just vote Trump, because Vivek is Vivek, and I'm sure Indians would have wanted to see an Indian VP. But I did say in the morning, Vivek has too much of a loudmouth, and Vivek is too independent. And at the end of the day, the president wants to mold the VP in his image, not really have the VP outshine him. And I'm not saying Vivek would have, but I think Vivek is a little bit too, he's meant to be more president to me than VP. So I think it makes sense ultimately going with Vance. RFK was rumored a couple hours ago, potentially, as the guy Trump put out this thing on Truth Social, hey, make sure RFK security, yada, yada. People were like, oh, if RFK is at the convention, maybe Trump, and it ended up being JD Vance. And I think they probably decided a couple of weeks ago, and they knew that now. Shout out to TJ for a $100 super chat. Wow, TJ, you didn't need to do that, but thank you, brother. We did pass 100,000 in profits on the tracker, the wheel experiment that TJ and I are doing. He posted about that on Twitter today. We sold some puts on Meta today, so we were able to cross that threshold. So not bad, 100,000 in 3 months off about 600-700 grand in collateral. So thank you, TJ. Really, really appreciate that super chat, and that was a milestone for us today. This is the picture right here for whoever wants to see it. But yeah, I'm very curious what people think. 105,000. That's what we got in premiums. What do people think? Is this the right pick? Is this the right pick? He worked for Peter Thiel. Yes, that's another good point. JD Vance's technology career was under Peter Thiel. I believe Peter Thiel endorsed him to be the candidate a couple of years ago, and he also funded him. So Peter Thiel likes JD Vance. Maybe there's a Palantir connection there. Not fully sure, but definitely he's loved by some of the people in the tech sector, like Peter Thiel. Buck Travel says, I'm in Ohio, and this state is a red state. Trump 2024. It definitely looks like Ohio is a better shot to go red now that he has JD. Luke says, I read the book and I loved it. Apparently the movie's on Netflix, so I'm gonna give it a watch and see kind of what his story was like. But apparently it was a movie that ended up affecting and impacting a lot of people. So there you go. That's Vance. That's the candidate, and that's who Trump decided to roll with at the end of the day. We'll talk more about that later. Let's get broader into the markets. We got 5 minutes left. Look at MicroStrategy, dude. It's up 15%. Michael Dell freaking tweeting about Bitcoin this morning. Like it's, Larry Fink, when he went on CNBC today and we watched him talk about crypto. Yeah, Michael Dell is just casually posting about this Bitcoin clip. I mean, I don't know, dude. It really feels like Michael Dell is going to make an announcement that Dell put it on the balance sheet. I think if they do that, it sets off a butterfly effect of other companies feeling the motivation to do it. Dell is not MicroStrategy, right? MicroStrategy is seen as like a loony company by a lot of Fortune 500s. Dell is Dell. I mean, Dell is a phenomenal company. So if Dell decides that, hey, maybe we should start embracing this, maybe some other companies also decide that they think it's the right idea. So that was exciting stuff today, and that obviously created more momentum in the context of Bitcoin. Let's hear a little bit from JPOW. He said some very interesting things. Here's the quote JPOW said today that I'm about to play. Is the quote that is signaling to the market we are probably getting a rate cut in September. Here we go.
So the Fed has set a target for inflation of 2%. Now, can you clarify, does that mean that the inflation rate has to be at 2% before you're ready to move, if you are ready to move, or does it have to be within sight? And what does it mean to be within sight?
So when we change interest rates, that tightens financial conditions, and that in turn affects economic outcomes, growth, labor markets, and ultimately inflation, but with lags that can be long and variable, as Milton Friedman famously said. And the implication of that is that if you wait until inflation gets all the way down to 2%, you've probably waited too long, because the tightening that you're doing, or the level of tightness that you have, is still having effects which will probably drive inflation below 2%. So we've been very clear that you wouldn't wait for inflation to get all the way down to 2%. Our test has been for the past quite some time that we wanted to have greater confidence that inflation was moving sustainably down toward our 2% target. And what increases that confidence in that is more good inflation data. And lately here, we have been getting some of that.
Okay. So if you missed it, what Powell said is the central bank will not wait until inflation hits 2% to cut interest rates, basically saying, hey, we don't literally need to wait till we see 2%, which is very in line with all the other comments we've been hearing, basically saying, look, we know we're not going to get to 2% by September, but we're probably going to cut by September. Here's another clip of JPOW.
Go back in history, when inflation began to arise after COVID, at some point people said, including you, that it was transitory. In hindsight, what do you think people missed about the nature of the inflation? Why was it more enduring than people initially thought?
So this is a question that people will be writing papers about and debating longer after all of us are gone. And it's early to say. It's actually kind of soon to be answering it, but I think so here's my answer to that question. When inflation arrived in March of 2023, it was really coming out of the goods sector, and it was connected to really high demand for goods, and it was the supply chains, global supply chains, which account for most manufactured goods, collapsed because of too much demand and because of COVID. And to us, that looked like a temporary fleeting situation. We also lost several million people out of the labor force. So wages went way up as the economy really boomed when we reopened the economy. And we thought, we were getting vaccines were coming in, and we thought that would fix itself too. Kids would go back to school. We essentially overestimated how quickly the economy would return to normal. These things finally did happen in 2023, but they didn't happen in 2021 or 2. And what we meant by transitory was that it would go away fairly quickly without the need for our intervention. You don't want to intervene with interest rates if something is going to go away quickly without us intervening, because monetary policy, as I mentioned, works with long and variable lags. So the lure is you look through things like a temporary oil shock. So that was the mistake, was that it actually didn't reverse itself. The problems with the supply side didn't reverse themselves until 2023, when they really did, when we got a big burst of employment, and also the supply chains were fixed.
All right, folks, 4 p.m. Monday, July 15th, the stock market is now closed. All right, let's see what we got going into the close. Robinhood closes at $23.94, up 7.45% of the day. So amazing close on Robinhood. PayPal, $60.47. NVIDIA was down today. We'll talk about that in a second, but NVIDIA was up in the morning, then down by the afternoon. Palantir, $28.69. Kind of makes sense that we didn't close in that high $29 range. Obviously, that was a bit tough of an ask for the market, but the fact that we're closing at $28.70. On Friday, we closed at $28.40. The day before that, it was $27.80. I mean, we are making progress and are really consolidating at these levels. We'll talk more about Palantir in a bit, but nice to see Palantir in that high $28 close. Tesla closes at $252, up 1.78%. Coinbase, great day, $242, up 11% on the day. Bitcoin, $63,466. ELF, I still don't fully know why ELF fell 8% today. If anyone knows in the chat, let me know. But ELF did take a bit of a tumble today. Celsius, again, the Wall Street Journal article and the TD Cohen pseudo downgrade is why Celsius was down 10%. Alibaba, 78, down 2%. Enphase was down 5.26%. I don't know why Enphase fell as well, but Enphase fell. Snowflake, down 1.52%. That's probably some of the lag from Friday's leak about their issues with AT&T. 186 on Google, up 0.79%. Apparently, the $23 billion startup Google is trying to buy did not stop investors from buying the stock today. So I guess investors are digesting that as positive news, and I'm sure on the earnings call we'll probably get some more clarity on what Google is doing with M&A. Apple upgraded to 273 by Citigroup today, or sorry, by Morgan Stanley, 234, up 1.67%. Netflix, they have earnings on Thursday, up 1.37%. And let's look at Goldman Sachs. They had good earnings this morning. Wow. Goldman Sachs, 2.66% on the day. And then outside of Goldman, look at the regional banking sector. Had a great day, up 3%. Even TFC individually was up 2% at 41.43 on the day. So regional banks really got some momentum. I'm assuming XLF, which was the banking ETF, that's up 1.4%. That's another reason why SoFi went up today. I mean, if the banks are doing well, then SoFi should probably perform with the banks. Obviously, rate cut would be good for SoFi, but it's going to be good for a lot of the other banks. So maybe as the banks get in the right direction, SoFi also benefits off that going into that rate cut, hopefully coming in September. Palantir, 28.72 after hours, and then Robinhood, 23.97 after hours on the day. Let's look at the Mag 7, or let's look at crypto first, then the Mag 7. So crypto stocks had a great day. Coinbase up 11%. CleanSpark, 15% day. Not bad. Not bad at all. Bitcoin and Ethereum had a good day. Oh, the Ethereum ETFs next Tuesday, Bloomberg is reporting they're going to be out. So Ethereum ETFs from ARK, from Fidelity, BlackRock, Bitwise, all these guys should be available to trade next week. That hopefully should be a catalyst. Marathon was up 18% today. Riot up 17%. Cypher 27%. Iren down about 2%. Bitfarms up 10%. And then MicroStrategy up 15% on the day. And then let's take a look at the Mag 7. They ended up closing. So Amazon, a little red. NVIDIA red. Tesla green. Google greenish. Meta down about 0.4%. Apple up 2%. And then Microsoft basically flat on the day. We did see IWM, I believe, go up about 2%. Yeah, 1.88%. So NVIDIA went down, IWM went up. In the morning, they both went up about 1.2%. Then NVIDIA went down 0.75. IWM went up 2%. Maybe, given the way the Fed is talking, the market bets on small caps over the large caps, and we see some of them stall out or at least not grow as much. But if that's not the case, and the market goes back to quality and starts pumping money into NVIDIA, then I think Russell takes a little bit of a hit. So I think it's too early. I think we need after Q2 earnings to really determine, are we going to see momentum in the small caps? But after earnings, we should probably have a good understanding of if both are going to rally or if one ends up sacrificing at least a little bit for the other to get some momentum. But overall, not a bad day. Not a bad day at all. Mohammed, thank you for the $50 50 MAD super chat. You know how you said the other day that no one hates on fellow Indians like Indians? I'd like to take a step to change that. Dude, if Trump picked Vivek, it would have been exciting. I know the Indian community would have went crazy about that. That would have been fun. But again, I think picking Vivek was just a little bit too much at this point. And maybe Vivek ends up having his chance a little bit later. Let's hear from Dan Ives today on this Google acquisition, and then we got a lot to analyze in the context of the macro Robinhood, so we'll keep going from there.
Securities analyst, he joins us now. Are you sure about the M&A approvals? Because yes, deregulation, but there are some question marks with some Republicans like J.D. Vance who have applauded what the FTC has done. And when Trump was president last time around, he moved to block some big deals.
Yeah, and I think the view, and I think you see it with the Google Wiz potential deal, we're going to have massive M&A in tech. And I think a weaker FTC, weaker con, this is going to really open up the floodgates. But I think it started with Microsoft Activision. I think that blueprint is where a lot of big tech companies are going to go down. And it just speaks to this AI arms race. Big tech can't be on the outside looking in. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of a much broader tidal wave of M&A that we expect in tech.
And this matters because if Google's not finding growth from cloud or search, not saying it's not growing, but it's just not as good to justify the $2 trillion market cap they're at, they're going to have to buy other companies. And hopefully the FTC allows them to do that.
I'm glad you mentioned the Google Wiz. Not a done deal yet, but the Journal reported over the weekend close to a $23 billion deal. This is a company we've talked to Asaf Rappaport. Started in 2020, cybersecurity for the cloud, and taken a lot of market share gains from folks like Palo Alto, right?
When you look at Palo Alto, CrowdStrike, Zscaler, I mean, Wiz front and center in terms of this golden age for cybersecurity. Now for Google, this would be a shot across the bow at Microsoft and Amazon Kurian definitely feeling the mojo. I think we'll see that again this quarter from a cloud perspective. If they get Wiz, it'd be a huge win. But I don't think it's just, this is not the end. I think you will see Microsoft, Amazon, Oracle, and others get aggressive when it comes to cybersecurity, because this is just the start, and we talk about this a lot on the show, of the AI revolution. It's 9 p.m. in this party that we believe goes to 4 a.m. Cybersecurity is on the dance floor of that AI party.
Okay, now a couple things about what Dan Ives is saying here in the context of Palantir. So to talk about Palantir for a little bit, first of all, JD Vance founded Naira Capital. I might be saying that wrong, which is named after a fictional object in Lord of the Rings. Obviously, Palantir, named after Lord of the Rings. And Thiel backed his VC fund. So Vance understands big tech. He understands startups. He understands regulatory frameworks around big tech. So in the context of the technology sector, JD Vance being Trump's VP, being backed in his VC fund, not just by Peter Thiel, but calling his VC fund an object from Lord of the Rings, which obviously, there's a little bit of a sort of Palantir aura there in terms of, I'm sure JD Vance knows what Palantir is, not only because Peter Thiel has given him money, but also because he picked the same name of an object from that movie that Palantir was named after. Maybe there's an argument. Maybe it's a little bit of a stretch, but maybe there's an argument that Vance as the VP is very good when Trump decides he needs XYZ technology to implement XYZ system. And the VP walks into the Oval Office and he's like, Mr. President, there's this company that I know very well called Palantir, and I know the founders really well. Do you want to set up a meeting? I mean, there's just an argument that that potentially could happen. And yes, JD doesn't like wars. Same thing with Trump. There is an argument that Palantir's defense revenue goes down because Trump not lowered the defense budget, but doesn't spend as much. I mean, there's an argument in that. It's not necessarily the way I think it would impact Palantir. I think maybe it impacts more Lockheed Martin and some of the other guys that are building that type of military artillery. But in general, I think when you need to solve a problem in the government outside of just from the defense sector, there's going to be an argument that we need the most high-class technology to get the job done. And if you got the VP in the president's ear saying, hey, here's a company that might be able to get the job done, then maybe Palantir can do it. Now, remember, when Peter Thiel endorsed Trump at the RNC back in 2016, Palantir didn't really have a commercial product. Palantir, I mean, in 2016, Palantir was getting rejected from American Express and Coca-Cola and Home Depot, and they were making a lot of mistakes and failing. So 2016 to 2020 was not Palantir's time to shine and get massive, massive government deals because they had Peter Thiel basically in the White House with Trump. But now, years later, where Palantir is hitting its prime, I think it's very beneficial to have someone like JD Vance. I'm going to do a lot more digging on who Vance is and his connections to Palantir, but that's something to think about. Now, here's another piece of news. Dan Ives, we were just listening to him. He put out a note with Wedbush. Here's the last sentence of that note that I think is very important for software companies, including Palantir. Our myriad of field checks globally over the past month give us a high level of confidence that the AI revolution monetization has now begun to hit its next gear of growth as the baton has been handed from semis to the software phase, with use cases exploding across the board. If Dan Ives is correct about this one sentence, if he's correct about this, maybe that is why the street is buying Palantir. Dan Ives, like other institutional analysts, they have plenty of clients with large pockets. And if they're saying, hey, you need to look at the software applications of AI, not just the hardware applications, maybe, it would supercharge my theory that I said this morning, which maybe this is an institutional rally, not a retail rally. Maybe the institutions are listening to people like Dan Ives and they're betting on the AI software names. And as a result, if Palantir can show the growth in Q2 and not disappoint, even if it's, just slightly better than expected, maybe that commands a higher multiple or at least justifies the current multiple that we have right now. So if Dan Ives is correct and all the checks that him and his team are doing are saying, yeah, the use cases of AI are exploding. Remember, that was the Sequoia article we got last week. We don't know what the use cases of AI are. If Palantir is showing that the use cases are real, I was at AIPCon and I saw some pretty real use cases, but that just has to scale. And it shows they've been able to monetize those use cases, which I'm still skeptical that in this quarter, they're at the stage where they can officially monetize. I think that's still a couple quarters away. Then maybe that's why the street is buying Palantir. And so that's kind of one of the core arguments I think Dan Ives made that's interesting in the context of what we got for Palantir. Oh, we got a number. August 5th. There you go. Thank you for that in the chat. Cause why not? We got a number. Palantir earnings. There you go. August 5th. Boom, baby. August 5th. So that's what, Monday. So Robinhood and Palantir on the same week, dude. That's going to be a hell of a. That's going to be a week, bro. That is going to be a week. All right, so there we go. Palantir announces earnings on August 5th. All right, are you guys excited? This is gonna be fun. Q&A for Palantir earnings is up. Yeah, we'll see what people have to say. Let me check insider selling on Palantir. No insider selling today. I think 4:30 is the final part of the day where they have to disclose it. So maybe we have 20 minutes left and I'll check, but so far no insider selling on well, they definitely can't. It's like a couple weeks before earnings, but still, so we probably won't see any substantial selling. But overall, on this run, we have not seen really any insider selling for Palantir, which has been. See, let's get another update on JD Vance, and then we'll go and talk a little bit more around macro.
Hey, Mike, that's right. Former President Donald Trump just moments ago announcing via his Truth social media app that he has selected JD Vance, a senator from Ohio, as his vice presidential running mate. The former president saying, after lengthy deliberation and thought and considering the tremendous talents of many others, I've decided that the person best suited to assume the position of vice president of the United States is Senator JD Vance of the great state of Ohio. JD honorably served our country in the Marine Corps, graduated from Ohio State University in 2 years, and is a Yale Law School graduate, where he was editor of the Yale Law Journal. So this is an important decision. Vice presidents don't tend to sway elections one way or the other, but it's always an important indication of what the president of the United States and the candidates for president of the United States want. In this case, by selecting J.D. Vance, former President Trump is not selecting somebody who will do coalition building, bringing in a group of voters who he doesn't necessarily have access to into his coalition. This is a presidential nominee who already has a coalition. He already has solid control of the party. He's already doing very well in the national polls. So in selecting J.D. Vance, he's looking at somebody who is more complementary to him than somebody who brings in an additional group of supporters that he doesn't have access to on his own. J.D. Vance.
That's a good point, actually. That's a very good point. Trump picking J.D. Vance is not expanding his horizon to different coalitions. He's actually just getting a sort of miniature version of him to reinforce his argument, and he's probably picking up Ohio. So I mean, that is a good argument that I guess that was the way the campaign wanted to ultimately structure how they were going to run their version of the presidency. Now, the earnings are going to be after hours on Monday, August 5th. So this follows the previous 5 earnings. I don't think we've had we haven't had a morning earnings for like a year now. So after hours should not be a surprise to anyone, but it will be after hours. Now, I just asked ChatGPT, which, by the way, is getting very, very good. Tell me the connections between JD Vance and Palantir. So here's the connections. Vance is associated with Peter Thiel, the co-founder of Palantir. Mithril Capital, which is Peter Thiel's VC firm. Mithril, also another term from Lord of the Rings. Vance worked at Mithril Capital, a venture capital firm co-founded by Peter Thiel. Naraya Capital, JD Vance co-founded his own VC fund. There is no direct public record of Naraya investing in Palantir. The firm operates in the tech investment space, which includes companies like Palantir. So he probably knows what Palantir is, what they do. And then Thiel has been a prominent supporter of Vance's political career. Given Thiel's significant role in Palantir, this connection suggests a shared network and mutual support in their respective ventures. I am starting to think, just a little hunch I'm having, that Thiel maybe was not behind JD Vance becoming the VP, but one of the reasons Thiel has been so reserved this political cycle is maybe he knew that JD was going to be the VP and he didn't need to be so involved, because why was Thiel involved in 2016? He wanted to have direct influence. He wanted to be able to call the president and for him to answer. Well, if you've got the VP's phone number and you gave the VP millions and millions of dollars years ago to start up his VC fund, I mean, you can make a phone call. So, I mean, this is pretty fucking bullish for Palantir. I think this is pretty bullish for Palantir. At least from the perspective of the political lobbying. And remember, Palantir is no stranger to other companies that do lobbying. Google spends God knows how many millions of dollars a year just on lobbying Congress on certain bills around advertising and social media and all this shit. So, I mean, if Palantir is able to easily kind of lobby from this perspective, it seems like it's a positive. And maybe the street also knew about that as well, which is why they gave them a premium the past couple of days. Palantir right here, 28.72 after hours. right now. Is Vance pro Putin? I actually don't know. And is his stance on Ukraine completely opposite of Karp's? Maybe. Again, I really haven't done a lot of research into this guy. I'm sure there's a lot of disagreements he will have with people like Alex Karp, given that Karp's not really a Republican. But in general, I think having him in the White House maybe helps Palantir. Someone says this sounds corrupt and shady. This is the way the world works, dude. It's about who you know, not what you know. This is actually a billionaire told me this. Okay, you guys know the billionaires. Derek, you guys all, every time I say a billionaire, you're like, you know one billionaire. His name is Derek. Derek told me it's about who you know, not what you know. And Derek is one of the smartest motherfuckers on the planet. He knows a lot about just like, he's a domain expert, particularly in e-commerce. That's kind of his like core bread and butter. But it's the connections. And for Palantir to get all these deals we've gotten over the past couple of years, it wasn't just because, we were the best tech. It's because Sham knew this guy and Karp knew that guy and Thiel knew that guy. And like, this is how you ultimately build a company at the end of the day and how you get things done. Microsoft, Google, NVIDIA, they all start from the point of how do you know the right people to get the job done? So to me, it's not corrupt or it's not shady. It's just the nature of investing in a business that works with the government. And if you believe Palantir is the best technology, if anything, it's helping Palantir's technology get more momentum, which is an important thing at the end of the day. It's always connections, dude. It's always going to be around who you know versus just what you know. Again, Palantir could have the best software in the world if there's no way they can get it into the government, which is why they created FedStart, because a lot of these government SaaS startups, they start and they don't know how to sell. It's like, well, you don't know anybody. You don't have the connections. You don't have the accreditation. You need all that stuff. And if anything, Palantir may end up helping a lot of other companies do well. Let's hear from Liz Young real quick and get her thoughts on what's going on with the economic environment. And then we'll transition a little bit to macro and what we're seeing with NVIDIA, small caps, and a couple other price upgrades we got on the street.
Still very much focused on just the interest rate outlook?
Well, first of all, we are very focused on the interest rate outlook in the sense of when the Fed is going to cut, how much they're going to cut. Even since this morning, earlier today when I looked, we had less than 100% chance of a cut in September. It was close. It was in the 90s. Now we're above 100% with a 16% chance of 50 bips in September and close to 3 by the end of the year. That's movement just in the last few hours. So
if we actually get 3 cuts, it's going to be pretty damn incredible towards the end of the year.
I think we are still very focused on that. The market continues to hang on that possibility. And that's why today you're seeing the Russell up 2%, while everything else, broad indices, not even up 1%. So that is still driving sentiment in a big way. I agree. I don't think that it will last. I don't think that this rotation into small caps or even lower quality cyclicals will last very long, but it's here now and it can last for a little while in the near term. Your question about fundamentals, I think the focus on fundamentals has happened because we've expanded so much in multiples that now we have to justify where we are, and the fundamentals need to justify that. So we've done it on the expectation that earnings growth would be so strong, and it has been strong, but now it has to continue. It has to persist to prove that we're supposed to be above the 5-year averages, the 10-year averages, that the trailing PE deserves to be in the 85th percentile, right? So we have to justify where we are at these multiples, or we have to go through a period where the multiples get a little bit more rational given the environment and given Fed cuts and a slowing economy coming down the pike.
Joe, what's interesting?
So the question that Liz Young is posing right there, by the way, we got some breaking news. If this is a snowflake piece of news, this would be crazy. But the question she's making is, do we have the growth to expand the multiples? And is Google at a 29 PE going to be able to get to a 32 PE after their earnings? And I don't know the answer to that. We're going to find out in a couple of weeks. But if it can sustain that, then we probably inch higher. But the question is, can Google, NVIDIA, et cetera, put up those numbers? Okay, Disney communications have been leaked online after a cyber hack. Wall Street Journal just reported that right now. I don't know if Disney uses Snowflake. If this is another Snowflake issue, that would not be the best. Hacktivist group critical of AI-generated art says it has obtained swaths of data from Disney Slack channels, some of which it has published online. Disney stock right now after hours it's not that affected. It's down 0.23%, so nothing too bad for Disney. My curiosity here is, did they store all of that in Snowflake? Because that would not be good. That would be 2 major companies, Disney and AT&T, with those problems. It doesn't seem like it's a Snowflake issue, so it shouldn't be Snowflake. But it looks like, so maybe this is also why Google is buying the cybersecurity startup, because cybersecurity is just becoming literally more important than ever. Yeah, as Drew says, I guess Google buying Wiz is good. It seems like they're thinking the multiple matters because, or multiple doesn't matter as much, 23 billion, because the growth rate is going to sustain itself because there's just so much growth going around in cybersecurity. Another piece of news, Bezos sold another 403,000 shares today at $200. So there you go. He continues to sell more shares. This is, again, another reason why it's getting really tough for Amazon to head higher, stuck in the 190s now. It tried to break 200 last week, but that's when Bezos announced he was selling another 25 million shares. And so he still is going to own 9% of Amazon after this, but right now that's a little bit of an issue with Amazon right now. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the macro and what we've got going on and kind of see where we are right now. This JD Vance Trump election thing does matter at the end of the day because the markets needed to price in, or the markets are continuously trying to price in if Trump is going to win or not. And with JD being his candidate, it seems like at least the markets are saying, well, more likely than not, this potentially is going to be a way for, or it's going to be a good ticket enough for Trump to be able to win. Now, we're still going to see. I'm not fully convinced that a Trump Vance ticket, landslides a Biden-Harris ticket. I think we're seeing a lot of more polling data after yesterday's horrific events, or Saturday's horrific events with the assassination attempt, that Trump is leading in a bunch of polls. But they're not polls that are landslide victory polls yet. And maybe we'll see those polls in a bit. But as of now, we're not seeing that at the moment. Citadel's Ken Griffin just gave $20 million to Republican fundraising committees. Just got that headline right now. So we got Ken Griffin, who's getting excited to support the Republican Party again. Okay, so in the context of macro, we saw the 10-year inch slightly higher today. Not that big of a deal as JPOW talked. It's 4.228 right now. It's down from 4.5 last week. And we saw oil come down today at $81, down about 0.36%. If we can get oil below 80 going into August, which is going to be hard, but let's say that happens, and we can get the 10-year closer to 3.9, which it seems like after August CPI, which I think we're seeing, it was probably going to be 2.8, 2.9. We're probably going to get a 10-year that collapses below 4%, even if it's like the high 3.9s. Then it's going to be a question of what stocks are going to run and how to position your portfolio at the time for the stocks that are going to run. And I think, quite frankly, if you've done well picking stocks this year, meaning you've picked the Palanters of the world, you've picked even the TFCs. I think this was a good pick this entire year from the regional banking sector. You've gone long on the NVIDIAs of the world, the big tech, and you've got in. Then you probably don't have to do that much portfolio adjustment. But if some of the portfolio is getting overweight, a lot of these names that you think don't have a chance to run, given how the macro changes, then maybe there is an argument for readjustment. The question, I think this is the existential question, is, and this is what we need Q2 earnings to figure out before the adjustment happens for a lot of portfolios, is the adjustment going from large cap to small caps reasonable, given we know small caps don't have the best quality companies in the world, but historically they're undervalued against large caps? I am not convinced yet that that's the argument. And I know a lot of people are convinced. Stanley Druckenmiller obviously is convinced on that. And he's already put his money where his mouth is, but I'm not sure selling NVIDIA at 130 to about IWM at 217 is the best move in terms of how the market plays out. I think that might end up working, but I also think selling IWM and buying NVIDIA at 130, given NVIDIA might have 2 more quarters where they absolutely crush, also could be working. I think it's really a question of, where do real yields end up? Where does oil end up? And do we get 50, 75, or 25 basis points by November? Because that's going to determine what the Santa Claus rally looks like. And if that truly is a melt up everything rally, or if that's a rally that is selective and NVIDIA being up 200% year to date stays at 200% up and it doesn't go up 225%. But we're going to have to see how that plays out going into the end of the year. DJT, that's another great question. I think that is also implicated in the context of the macro, because at the end of the day, DJT is one of those companies that is not trading on anything fundamental. It's trading on pure support for Trump. Rates come down. That's good for all risk-on assets like DJT. But it's also really good for DJT if obviously Trump were to win. Now, the problem here is Trump, again, he owns a couple billion worth of stock, and he could quite literally increase his net worth by 3-4 billion on paper, or sorry, in like, real money. It's not just paper money, by selling. I don't know if he would sell, but if he does sell, there will be people holding the bag. And, I think Trump, he could end up selling a decent amount of it if he wanted to, especially if it's getting ready to fund the campaign into the October, November months. Remember, September 25th is when the lockup period ends. So that's what really determines DJT. This actually is indirectly good for Robinhood, because DJT a couple months ago was one of the top 10 stocks on Robinhood. whether you like it or not, people were buying DJT on Robinhood. So this thing going up actually does help Robinhood's assets under custody. Robinhood $23.94 after hours right now on the day. And where is Palantir? Palantir $28.70 right now on the day as well. Maybe Teal will sell some more Palantir if it hits $30 potentially. And I think, again, these earnings are going to be very important to figure out if we actually can sustain a run above 30. Someone in the morning said it, and it's been in my mind all day. If Palantir puts up a $700 million quarter, yeah, that gets us over 30. But do we actually, get to 700 million? That is going to be the hard part to figure out. And if we can beat earnings by 50 million bucks, because right now we're just projecting 650. Cool. Okay, let's finish up what Dan Ives was saying, and then we'll get some more coverage on JD Vance and try to figure out what this means for politics.
Who are the targets?
I think when you look at names like Tenable, you look at names like Varonis, I think you're going to see a lot of the private players too when they decide whether it's going public or going for M&A. But if this is true, a $23 billion type price tag, Google, biggest acquisition they've ever made, this is really going to start what I believe the catalyst for big tech. But it also speaks to you go into November, if a Trump White House, that's a weaker FTC, it's a weaker con, and you will see the floodgates open up for tech M&A.
What explains Tesla's rebound, including today, and in the face of another maintenance of an underweight over at Wells? What do you think's going on?
It's the Trump trade.
It is.
I think if you look at it, it just viewed Trump is bullish for Musk, bullish for Tesla. Now, then you look at broader EVs, it's negative. Trump obviously negative for electric vehicles, but Tesla would be in a position of strength if those rebates are taken away. And when you think about the Biden White House, Musk has obviously really been more in the background or an afterthought. Viewed in a Trump White House, if that happens, Musk will be front and center bullish for Tesla. And I think that's what we're seeing today, after this weekend.
Pretty clear. There's a direct line there.
And yeah, and I think for Tesla now, this has been somewhere the mojo's coming back, and also in terms of AI.
Aren't we approaching your target on Tesla?
We are getting close to the $300 target. And Carl, what I've talked about with you is the bull case is 400. And I continue to think, even though Robotaxi Day could potentially be moved from 8/8 to October.
You were not unnerved by that at all, right?
Because I just view that we're talking 2 months.
Yeah.
And the AI story, that's $1 trillion alone, in our opinion, of value that could be added to the Tesla story, which we do not view as an automaker. We view as a robotics AI player.
So I forgot to lead with that story today because the Trump VP news kind of was the core lead. But yeah, Elon confirmed the delay. So I just remembered as they asked Dan Ives about it. Elon says that Bloomberg was right. He didn't literally say Bloomberg was right, but he said what he had to say for us to realize Bloomberg was right. So Warren, big guy in the Tesla community, he posted some video about Tesla, and Elon said, I requested what I think is an important design change to the front of the Robotaxi or Cybercab, and extra time allows us to show off a few other things. I don't know why he couldn't have just said that. Like when the Bloomberg article came out, he could have just been like, yeah, it's delayed. We just have to work on some stuff. I don't know why we had to play detective for the past 4 days trying to figure this out, but I guess in true Elon fashion, he confirms underneath a random Twitter post about Tesla that yes, it is delayed. Now, he's not literally officially saying it's delayed. He's confirming that he asked for a delay. Is there a shot the 8/8 event still happens? Maybe, but given that someone like Adam Jonas didn't even get an invite yet, and he's one of the biggest Tesla analysts on the street, I would imagine it's probably going to get delayed, which is okay. I think they need to take a couple more months to get the job right. And if they do get the job right, then that's going to be the most important thing for Tesla. Amit, I'm sure you saw this, but I just did AM. Did you know there was a huge hack on the Snowflake platform? Yes. No, there was a huge hack that was announced actually a couple weeks ago, Friday with AT&T. It got pretty bad. And right now the street's got to figure out when they think Snowflake's a buy. Now the thing is, Goldman Sachs, I said this a couple of days ago, Goldman Sachs is banging the hand on the table, if that's the correct terminology. I don't know. But they're banging on the door of Snowflake. They're saying 220. Snowflake's going to 220. It's incredibly undervalued. Goldman Sachs would not be, the first time a Wall Street firm got this wrong. In fact, the street bet on Snowflake a long time ago, and they got their ass handed to them with Palantir that's up now 70% year to date. Obviously, massively outperforming Snowflake, but I do think Snowflake is undervalued because it's oversold. I don't know if it bounces all the way up to 220. That's going to be a little tough to get there, but there is a chance that it could get there. Also, the Trump case was dismissed. Yeah, that's another big thing that was huge for the Trump campaign today. The classified documents case was dismissed. So 2 big things happened for him. Well, 3. Number 1, he didn't die. That was an important thing. I think all of us can agree on that. That was very good that didn't happen over the weekend. Number 2, classified documents case was dismissed. Some people are saying the judge was political. I don't really think that makes a lot of sense, because if this judge was political, but that judge during the hush money trial case wasn't political, like at some point we have to just pick one narrative and go with it. And so the reason they said it was dismissed was because they had an inadequate form of submitting the evidence for it, which actually dismisses a lot of cases. So that's why it was dismissed. And then the third thing is he picked JD Vance. And now the question is going to be, is JD Vance really the guy that can get Trump to the finish line? A little bit more coverage on JD Vance, and then we'll keep going from there.
Technology. Again, I'm quoting this Truth Social post from the former president, and finance. And now during the campaign for the first time, it's time for me to suck it up and join this movement. And since he made that decision, as he prepared to run for the Senate in Ohio and won the endorsement of former President Trump, an endorsement, by the way, that catapulted him to the top of a very contested Republican primary and made him not only the nominee, but the future senator from Ohio, J.D. Vance has been not only the most stalwart, dependable, but most aggressive defender of former President Trump's approach on policy, politics, and even rhetoric. And for that reason, he rose to the top of this list and now has been chosen by the former president as his running mate in this campaign.
Just reiterating the fact that Vance has been in Trump's corner, making that appeal on television. In fact, he was just on Face the Nation with our own Margaret Brenner recently, and he was vigorously defending the fact that the former president needed immunity to do his job as he believed as future president. Of course, in the wake of that decision from the Supreme Court, he has defended the former president when it comes to January 6th. And he obviously came, as many in the nation did, after the attempted assassination on Saturday, to his corner, to his defense, actually posting on Twitter and alleging that it was the current president's own rhetoric that led us there, saying the central premise of the Biden campaign is that President Donald Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs. J.D. Vance on Twitter saying, on July 13th, just 2 days ago, the night of the attempted assassination, that rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. Of course, we know President Biden has tried to cool the temperature on both sides. Let's go back to you, Major, as we continue.
One of Trump's sons, I'm forgetting which one, I think it was Eric, he was on a CNN interview a couple hours ago, and he said that the campaign has directed the tone of the operatives in the campaign, like Trump's son, to not be as intense as it was following the assassination attempt. That is not an order coming down from Trump. That's a general premise that the campaign has decided they are going to orient themselves in, because they want to kind of tone down the rhetoric from a, aggressive, violent perspective in case it could lead to bad things happening. And we're going to see if that's how the campaign feels, and that's how Eric Trump said a couple of hours ago how the campaign is feeling. Maybe Trump also carries that same message going into the RNC speech. I think it would be the smart thing for him to do. Basically, when others go low, you go high, and call for unity. And I think if that's the message, that's probably going to be the right message that people want to hear, and potentially make him, more electable. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. JD wasn't ever Trumper, correct. 2016, JD did not like Trump at all. And by 2021, he changed. Now, maybe he changed to get elected. You could argue that was the case in Ohio, or maybe he changed because he actually believed in Trump's policies, which, given he opposed a no-fly zone over NATO, from NATO in Ukraine, I think he is a little bit more America first, like Trump. But regardless, Trump sees something in JD Vance that's going to help him potentially win the election. Apple, we talked about it this morning. Morgan Stanley says Apple is their top pick. Here's their breakdown for why that's the case. And let me know in the chat who's long Apple as well, and if you would be buying at 235.
Of I guess middling upgrade cycles. Why do you think that the AI technology incorporated here, we heard about it about a month ago,
sure,
is actually going to move the needle?
Sure. So if we look back in time, there has been no other time in history that Apple's installed base has been as large, that replacement cycles have been as long, and where Apple has forced you to upgrade your phone to get such a new and kind of pervasive technology at the same time. So you put all three of those together and you say there's a clear catalyst and only 8% of iPhones and iPads can actually run Apple Intelligence today. It's clear that Apple will try to add more utility value to your phone in introducing Apple Intelligence. Almost certainly the product will just get better over time. And ultimately, there's over 1 billion devices that need to be refreshed to get to get this technology. That's what we think, at its simplest form, drives the upgrade cycle.
So it's not necessary, I guess, by the way you put it out there, that today a preponderance of people feel it's immediately necessary to have this technology, but that it will build in that direction. So that's why it seems like you're fixing the price target, the valuation on fiscal 2026.
Correct.
Numbers.
Yep, and that's exactly right. So if we think about it, Apple Intelligence will launch sometime later this fall. It's only available in US English. About 30% of the iPhone installed base is in North America. And so there is a cohort that can upgrade this fall that can get Apple Intelligence, but ultimately 70% of the world doesn't have access to it. In countries like China, you'll need a local cloud partner. Right? So there's still language broadening that needs to happen, third-party API integration that needs to happen. We think that can progress over the course of the year, such that in fiscal 25, we have Apple doing 235 million shipments, very slightly above consensus. But in fiscal year 26, that becomes the big year, 262 million shipments. I'd also add that we think with the iPhone 17, which would drive fiscal 26 numbers, we think you get a bit of a form factor change. We think you get a slim model. We think that actually becomes an incremental reason to upgrade as well.
Does this change the mix in terms of services versus hardware and all the multiple implications for that? Because even with this fairly aggressive above consensus idea of what revenue and earnings can be in fiscal 26, you have to 30 times multiple on top of that for your price target.
Sure. So there's two ways that I would describe it. First is product revenue is going to grow faster than we've had it growing over the last 2 years. That is clear, right? Double-digit growth versus relatively benign growth. So at the end of the day, the mix shift to services won't be as strong as it's been over the last 2 years, but we still have services outgrowing product. And therefore, you still do get this positive mix shift such that by 2026, 40% of gross profit dollars from Apple come from the services business. It's about 36% today. We then say, historically, there's a very clear correlation between services gross profit dollar mix and valuation multiple. So there's a reason to say, even with this cycle, which in and of itself to me is multiple enhancing, if services is growing faster, becoming more of mix, that is still a tailwind to the multiple, albeit earnings revisions still have to drive the majority of this story.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder what the main pushback you might get if it is just on valuation. I mean, even with meeting your revenue estimates for fiscal 26, I think the 5-year annualized revenue growth is only going to be 5 or 6%. Right.
Yep. And that is how, that is ultimately how Apple trades over time, which is, I think we have to be cognizant there are typically 4-year cycles here, or at least that's what we've seen historically. The first two being very strong, the third one mediocre, and the fourth up to that cycle, depends. And this year we are entering into this 2-year up cycle. If you go back to 2021 with the 5G iPhone 12 cycle, Apple peaked at about 32 times earnings. That was when the exuberance behind the 5G iPhone cycle was growing. We think the same thing can happen. So my price target is 31 times multiple. Again, a turn discount relatively in line with the historical peak, but you do have services mix as a percentage of gross profit dollars higher today than you did back in 2021. That helps to support that call.
Okay, so we got some news right here. DJT is crashing after hours due to a share offering. Oh boy, DJT. Yikes, down 8%. So you got the thesis on Apple, kind of the same stuff Dan Ives has been talking about. Either you're long Apple if you believe they're the gateway to consumer AI, or you are not right now. So DJT just did a share offering, huh? Let's see. See, this is the thing about stocks. Like, it's just, as much as people want to support politically their candidates, at the end of the day, these are not good companies. It's just like, you're really just buying it to support Trump, but doesn't look like there's a lot of money to be made if you think it's a good investment, because it's going to trade on momentum. So 37 million shares. Are they're diluting? I'm looking at it right now. It looks like 37 million shares, if I'm not wrong. That's a decent amount. No, there's no way it's 37 million, dude. There's no way. That's That's a lot. I don't even think there's 37 million shares in the company yet. I don't think that's the case. Let me go to their website. Let's see. But that is definitely not the best for DJT. Where is it after hours? Yeah, it's down 8% on that DJT. Let's see. They did they put out a press release? No, they didn't put out a press release. Maybe it's in their SEC filings. Okay, there's definitely a share offering. I don't know what the share offering is, but there is a share offering there, and there's just more dilution for shareholders. All right, so DJT's down. a new ear ain't cheap. Oh my gosh. Yeah, look, at the end of the day, if you're buying DJT, you're buying it for I don't think anyone seriously is buying it as an investment. If you are, then I don't know really what to say to you, because company's worth $7 billion. They do $3 million in revenue. But if you're buying it to support Trump, that's a totally different reason to buy it, and I understand. It's just, if you're doing that, there is, management behind it that will try to use your support potentially as liquidity. It's just the nature of how companies operate. And so it's one thing you got to remember if you're even doing it as a supporter of Trump at the end of the day. So we'll see what happens there. That's what we got on DJT. Robinhood after hours 23.95. Not bad for Robinhood. Palantir right here 28.70. SoFi after hours 7.37. Reddit was down a little bit today, down 1%. Nike was down 3% on the day. It's up a little bit after hours. Curious if anyone's still getting excited about Nike yet or not. Tesla 252 after hours, and then Bitcoin still holding 63, which was exciting. We got close to 64 in the morning and then fell back down. So if we can maintain 63, that would be a very exciting thing for Bitcoin. Just got to see if we can keep holding this momentum. You don't even end up supporting Trump, though. He can't sell. Well, he can sell in September. That's when his lockup period ends. So if you hold till September, technically he can use your dollars to sell. And if the campaign needs money, which it doesn't look like the campaign is going to have any problem raising money, but if they did need money, they literally have $3 billion of liquidity available in September. He probably wouldn't sell everything, but if he needed, an extra $200 million, he could sell shares and gain some momentum. So I guess we're going to see how that ends up playing out. But the broader point is the market has obviously priced in a higher probability of Trump winning. And that's what we're seeing with Bitcoin, and it's what we're seeing with the rest of the market, along with the rate cuts coming. But both of those seem to be relatively bullish for the broader market. Share offering at 40 million shares, near price of 40 equals $360 million and a dilution of 6 to 7%. Okay, so it's 40 million shares if this comment is correct. 6% dilution is a decent amount of dilution. I mean, at least it's not 25% like CleanSpark did a couple months ago, but CleanSpark has the Bitcoin catalyst. DJT does not. CleanSpark up 15% today. DJT now down 7% after hours. SoundHound crashed. Any news? I have no news on SoundHound other than it's SoundHound, and it's going to trade a little bit more in the meme-ish sector, so that's probably why it came down. Let's further get some coverage on JD Vance and the RNC and try to get a better understanding of why Trump picked him.
To write about this from his family life in Ohio and Kentucky. Then he became a conservative, and he was shunned by liberals. Hakeem Jeffries just put out a second ago, Neil, J.D. Vance will not unify us. He's an election-denying MAGA extremist, another missed opportunity to bring America together. But in reality, Neil, I think that this choice is about the former president trying to bring America together, and the turn that he makes, likely on Thursday, is going to be something that I think is going to be very noticeable.
Do we know, Brett, whether this was this choice even before the events that unfolded in Pennsylvania on Saturday? Was this a switch since that? Do we know any of that?
We do think that the former president made up his mind over the past day or so, according to the top senior campaign. But J.D. Vance was always high on the list. And we don't know if it had changed. There was this apprentice-like process here
Yes, indeed.
that got us to these top choices, and then it was pretty tightly kept. Trying to figure it out. It's the worst story ever. I heard Britt Hume talking earlier how he got beat on the Geraldine Ferraro announcement with Mondale, and how he hates this story, trying to figure out the VP pick. But it was very well kept secret, and now it's out. Now the focus is what comes out of this convention. I think you're going to see this ticket probably walk together, maybe say something, but it'll be the first time perhaps that the former president is seen since the assassination, and expect this place to go crazy.
I would imagine.
All right, let's end it off with some Tom Lee and see what he had to say. Here's a segment of what he said today about small caps about 20 minutes ago.
I think the rally that started last week for small caps is going to be larger than the October to December rally of last year. That was
Wow, that's a big argument.
over 8 weeks, almost a 30% gain for the Russell 2000. This time we have a larger short position by institutions. We have small caps even more oversold, and valuations, whether you look at median PE, which is now at 10 times 2025 earnings, even lower. So we think that this move could be something like 10 weeks and as much as 40%. So I think it is just starting. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, the June CPI was so astonishingly soft. I think it's giving the green light for small caps to rally finally, because the Fed will, ultimately cut, hopefully by September. I think
That's a big argument. So Tom Lee thinks that and Tom Lee's been saying he thinks 300 on the Russell could happen by the end of the year. We've got the catalyst in place for the market to do what it needs to do. Q2 earnings, we're going to see how big tech performs. If they end up performing the right way, then that's only going to continue momentum. If Q3 can follow up on Q2, then that's important. The consumer is not getting to a point where they can't afford the basic things that you need for an economy to do well. It seems very obvious, JPOW, in the comments we read this morning by the Fed President Goolsbee, is around the idea that you don't want to wait to cut because things are going to get too intense. They don't want to make the same mistake like they did on inflation. They waited too long before they raised the rates to combat inflation. Same thing with cutting. And then you've got AI that's still a massive tailwind. And hopefully with companies like Palantir producing earnings shows that there's real results and real software use cases, and they can't be ignored. So you've got the AI tailwind, you've got company Q2 earnings, you've got the consumer that's relatively okay and not really suffering yet, and that's because the labor markets are not suffering, and you've got the Fed that's ready to cut rates, and with inflation coming down, given the CPI data, I mean, you put all those things together, it should not be luck that you make money at the end of the year. That's what I keep telling myself with my portfolio. It's like, look, if I get to the end of the year and then I can finally take the profits I want to take at the end of the year, early next year, it's not going to be luck, dude. I mean, obviously there's a little bit of luck involved in everything, but it's going to be, you knew when to hold because you looked at all the data. Now there's some stuff that I can't predict. Like if Trump, God forbid, was assassinated on Saturday, that would have put a dent in everyone's portfolio. And there's no way you can predict that. But outside of those crazy black swan events, given the data we're looking at as just basic macroeconomists, it seems likely like this year ends out not bad. And if that's the case, dude, if that's the case, then I think everyone's going to be entitled to some nice profits, and you're going to know that you worked really hard to get those profits. Because the one thing that sucks is selling too early. Obviously, like if you sold Nvidia at $70, you probably feel like shit right now, even though you were up a lot. And the other part is selling too late, right? Like if Nvidia topped out at 140 and then we get closer to 90 by the end of the year and your average is like 92 or something, you could have sold at 140. Like that also sucks. And no one's ever going to be perfect on it, but at least understanding the macro and then obviously the technicals. We'll have Jason on tomorrow to break down technicals for a lot of different stocks given the price action this week. It should give you an understanding, at least, on making an educated decision on when I should hold, when I should sell, which ones I go long on. And so hopefully we'll see by the end of the year. You're selling Palantir? No, it's not Palantir, but I have some options in my portfolio, and those options are going to expire, and I need to plan an exit for those eventually. And so it's really a question of making sure, I understand what my exit strategy is as well, going into the end of the year. And again, like even SoFi, I have 70 spreads on SoFi, and the idea was like when it bottomed at 615 last week, I was thinking of just getting rid of it because what if it goes to 550? But then I thought about it for a second. I'm like, but like when rates get cut, this thing should not be stuck at like if SoFi stuck at $5, 630 when rates get cut, then it's just like the most hated company in the world. Like I don't think that's the case. I think there's some. I think there's a shot SoFi is closer to $8 than $5 when we have 2 rate cuts and we have a management that is going to have 2 more quarters of profitability. And even if you value them purely as a bank and not as a tech, like it should be closer to an $8 billion company versus a $5 billion company. So just knowing those basic things and then understanding the macro, that gives you a better understanding of how we should engage in buying or selling or holding different stocks. Yeah, the options on Robinhood. Yes, options are on Robinhood. Chris just tagged me in something. Chris, wow. So JD Vance uses Robinhood. Speaking of Robinhood, what Chris just tagged me in something. JD Vance just disclosed some of his stock accounts, I guess. He has a Robinhood checking account which holds 100 to 250 grand. I want to see what article he got this from. So apparently this is his disclosure. He owns about 100 grand of Walmart stock, 250 grand of Bitcoin through Coinbase, 200 grand of UST bonds, $1 million worth of QQQ, NASDAQ tech, Goldman Sachs corporate debt, about 500 to 1 million, a Robinhood account with 250 grand, and then Huntington National Bank. He has about 250 to 500 grand. Well, JD Vance, bullish for Robinhood. There you go. He uses Robinhood. Speaking of Chris, by the way, Chris we'll end on this, double down on his short on Palantir. By the way, so he added, I think he added like 50 iron condors to his Palantir puts. And so his break even is 26.71, which means he needs to be below that price to generate a profit. So this is by January 2025, by the way. So we will see if it gets to below 26. So he's thinking in 6 months it's below 26, basically below 27. We'll see. Someone in the comments, this shocked me. I don't know who this guy is. This guy bought $100,000 worth of puts on Palantir that it would be below 27 by October 18th. I'm not saying Palantir is definitely going to be above 27 by October 18th, but I just saw this in the comments and I was like, damn, people are ballsy, bro. Either that guy is betting the whole portfolio or he kind of like has money to play around with. Because even if I was bearish on a company, dude, I would not go that heavy on a bearish bet unless I really thought Palantir was falling to $27 by October, which is very possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying that's a hell of a bet. JD Vance is live at the RNC. Is he? We can go to him if he's live. Let's see. Let me refresh and let me see. But that was just shocking to me that someone did. I would imagine, they definitely don't think Palantir is going to do well towards the end of the year. Adam, thank you for the super chat. Tell Chris, new bet, $1,000. I say Palantir finishes to the high end of his candor by the end of the year. Palantir is king. Well, as long as you're above 26.71, then Chris would lose that bet. Let's get back to the RNC. Let's see if he's about to speak or not. If he speaks, we'll watch it. But let's see.
And does pretty well. And I think they're most looking forward to the prospect of a Vance Kamala Harris debate.
Yeah. I'm thinking,
Okay, he's not speaking yet. I'll leave it up for a couple minutes and I'll see if he speaks. He's meeting a bunch of people right now at the RNC. He's shaking hands with everyone. I don't know if he gives a speech today, but maybe. Thomas Vance is talking about Palantir on stage. Someone just commented on Twitter because I commented that I posted the ChatGPT screenshot of Vance. Someone commented, Amit's mom says him to clean his room. Amit, mom, yes, but tell me how is that bullish for Palantir? You're not wrong, bro. You're not wrong. That's whoever I marry, she's gonna have to know how to talk about Palantir, bro. She's gonna have to articulate an ontological understanding of this company, bro. We're gonna have a lot of fucking net worth tied up in Palantir, so she better know about Palantir. That's just like, it is what it is. She has to know that. But anyway, yeah, Chris doubled down on his puts, and so did this random dude in the comments who had 100 grand. Even Chris was like, "Good luck, dude." Even Chris was like, "All right, you're getting a little wild there, buddy, with the puts." But we'll see. We'll see if that happens. Is he going to speak today? Do you guys think Vance speaks today? I don't think he speaks today. I think he might speak during the week. Like, I don't think any of the major speeches happen today. I think today is just the day that everyone kind of like gets to know each other, gets the delegates, all that stuff. But I don't think anyone important really speaks today. So I guess he has to speak today. He got announced. I don't know. Does he? Does JD Vance speak at the RNC today? Let's see. When does Trump speak? That's the question. That's also what I'm curious about. When is Trump actually going to speak? I don't think it's today, dude. I think it's during the middle of the week, because I don't think I think the first day of the RNC is not when like all the big stuff happens. Let's see. I have it loaded up. If I see him getting ready to speak, we'll pivot over there and we'll see. Oh, he's speaking at 5. It's confirmed. Oh, well, we're 4 minutes away, so he should be all right. So we'll watch him. Oh, I think you're right. I think he is speaking. Okay, let me transition. Let's see if he's speaking.
Shuts office shall be required. At this time, the chair states that she has been furnished with evidence that there is only one candidate for nomination for the office of Vice President who has demonstrated the support required under Rule 40B of the Rules of the Convention. Delegates and alternates, the chair recognizes and is pleased to introduce John Husted, Lieutenant Governor of Ohio, for the purpose of nominating. Please give him a warm welcome.
Are we ready? Are we ready to nominate a vice president? How about you, Ohio? Yeah! That's awesome. I'm John Husted, the Lieutenant Governor from the great state of Ohio. It is an honor to speak to you all this afternoon to formally nominate the Republican nominee for Vice President of the United States. Ohio is the heart of it all, and that is certainly the case once again here today. The vice presidency is an office of sacred trust. The man who accepts this nomination accepts with it the awesome responsibility to give wise counsel to the president, to represent America abroad, to preside over the Senate, and to be ready to lead our nation at a moment's notice. Such a man must have an America first attitude in his heart. He must, amen. He must embrace his obligation to the American family, the American worker, and the American soldier. He must believe that America is exceptional. And be prepared in the tradition of our founders to pledge his life, his fortune, his sacred honor to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. He must share the values and principles of our presidential nominee and be trusted to faithfully implement the will of the people. JD Vance is such a man.
And welcome to the 5. We are about to see JD Vance nominated to be the vice presidential candidate. We want to listen in here.
A man who loves America and will represent our people with moral courage, strength, and honor. JD is a living embodiment of the American dream. He came from humble beginnings, and even as his life took him to places he might have never imagined, he never forgot where he came from. Ohio values are in his blood. He served our nation in the United States Marine Corps. He is a graduate of The Ohio State University. He graduated summa cum laude from Yale Law School and is the author of the best-selling book Hillbilly Elegy. And he is a crusader for the people of the Ohio in the United States Senate. He has never forgotten the working people of our country, and he never will. He fought to bring investment to Middle America as a businessman and has fought to defend them every single day in the Senate. And this I know, he will faithfully stand by President Donald Trump's side as they win this election and change the course of our nation. They will change the course of our nation to the benefit of all American citizens and truly make our country great again. It is therefore my honor to nominate Ohio Senator J.D. Vance for the office of Vice President of the United States of America.
Delegates and alternates, pursuant to Rule 40A, a motion to nominate by acclamation is now in order. The chair now recognizes Delegate Bernie Moreno, Senate candidate from Ohio, for the purpose of making a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Bernie Moreno. I'm honored to be the Republican nominee for the U.S. Senate from the great state of Ohio. I know firsthand that my dear friend Jay is a selfless and brilliant fighter. He is a patriot who loves America. He loves Ohio. He loves his family. He's a great father. He's a great man. And that's what we need in this nation today. To J.D. Vance, America First is not just a slogan. It's his North Star. He has followed it every moment of his life and career. He knows what it's like to live in poverty, forgotten by Washington politicians. He is dedicated to ensure that no American is ever forgotten again.
And this is true. He did grow up in poverty. And so he is now in the elite class with venture capital and Yale and all that stuff. But he did grow up in the Rust Belt of Ohio.
Madam Chair, it is a great honor to move that J.D. Vance be nominated by acclamation by this Republican National Convention as its candidate for the office of Vice President of the United States of America.
Without objection, the previous question is ordered. The question is on the motion that Senator J.D. Vance be nominated by acclamation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
All right, so there you go. J.D. Vance, officially the VP, or the nominee to be the Republican VP.
Gentlemen, I am proud to announce that Senator J.D. Vance has the overwhelming support of this convention to be the next Vice President of the United States. the chair is pleased to make the following appointments to the escort committee for Senator J.D. Vance, his vice presidential nominee. Usha Vance, thank you, and God bless America.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Speaker Johnson.
Okay, so he's not going to be talking today. He'll be talking later in the week, and then Trump, I think, is on Thursday. All right, there you go. You just got nominated as the VP for the Republican Party. Yes, he does have an Indian wife. I know a lot of you guys are mentioning that because I'm Indian. I don't really care, dude. I mean, like, that's fine. That's great. Like, that's awesome. I don't know if the response needs to be, oh my God, that's so inclusive. I love that he married a brown woman. This is like, he's going to be like, no, dude, I don't care. So that's great for him. He married an Indian. But yeah, I guess that's cool. I'm more concerned about how is Vance's politics going to interact with Trump. And the main reason is some people forgot, but Vance called Trump Hitler years ago. So, like everyone says, the left calls Trump Hitler. Well, Vance himself, who was not on the left, called Trump Hitler. He obviously changed his mind, and that's why Trump picked him as his VP. But there was a moment where Vance was not the happiest with Trump and compared him to Adolf Hitler. So the fact that that progression happened in him, it'll be interesting, I think, for some people to press him at least on why I'm pretty sure it's a fair question for the media to want to know, why did you feel he was Hitler and what has changed and what fundamentally had to change in your mind? Because we'll tell if it's bullshit if he was just doing it to buy votes, which maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know the guy. I haven't done any deep research. Or he genuinely realized that, assuming Trump was Hitler is just too much of a stretch. And maybe it's a mix of both. Who knows? But I think we'll find out a lot about him over the coming weeks, and we'll learn more about what he had to say. Do you think Vance can say turquoise? Dude, I was listening back to the stream in the morning. I can't believe I said turquoise over tortoise. I've heard the hare and the tortoise. Like I've heard that like so many times growing up, like that famous story. But I called it a turquoise. And I'm going to keep calling it a turquoise because now it's a turquoise to me. Now it's just how it is. So we're going to keep doing it. Yeah, JD owns about 250 grand of Bitcoin. This is also important. We saw that when Chris disclosed it on that screenshot, but here's another disclosure. Apparently he believes in crypto, at least. I would imagine, given he was in the tech sector, he understands the crypto arena. Let's actually go to his VC fund. So JD Vance, Naraya Capital. I'm assuming there's a website for it, right? Is there a website? Oh, here it is, Naraya VC. So can we see what they invested in their portfolio? Okay. So Hollow, this is a company that, this is a Catholic reading app, if I'm not wrong. Yep, I was right. Catholic reading app. Okay. So Hollow's a religious, Rumble. They invested in, that makes sense because Thiel put it into Rumble. Strive, this is Jared Kushner's VC fund, if I'm not wrong, or private equity fund. So he invested in Strive. And then here's the leadership of it. Not a lot of like crazy companies here. Rumble's the name I know. Hallow. And then what's Chapter? Oh, I know about Chapter. Chapter uses Palantir. Wow, Chapter raised $42 million in a Series B, if I'm not wrong, in 2021, and I think they were part of Foundry for Builders. I'm going to confirm on that, but there is a connection between Chapter and Pound. I made a video on them a while ago, I think. I'm pretty sure. Oh man, I know this company. Yeah, here we go. I got it. So right here. The Chapter partners with Palantir on its tech platform, which integrates the data on all Medicare plans and allows its advisors to make the most informed recommendations. So boom, there you go. I don't have big tits, but that's some DD, baby. All right. Chapter, the company that JD Vance funded along with Peter Thiel, works with Palantir's tech. There's no way JD Vance gave Chapter or participated in the $42 million funding round if he didn't know what the internal technology was like. I imagine, given he was a VC, he has to look at like how the company operates. So he is definitely familiar with Palantir Technologies if one of his portfolio companies works with Palantir to integrate all their Medicare data. So there you go. I mean, I think JD knows a little bit about Palantir, and that will be a potential link going into his vice presidency. Strive is Vivek's asset management firm. They were law school roommates. You're right about this. You're right. What is Jared Kushner's name of his? I thought it was also Strive. Jared Kushner VC Fund. He did start one in the Saudis. Oh, Affinity. Sorry, I had the wrong. It's Affinity. Yeah, they raised $1 billion from the Saudis. Okay, but I remember that name, Strive. So Vivek was roommates. I heard this as well with JD in law school in Ohio. That's right. Vivek's from Ohio. Well, no, but Vivek. So he's from Ohio. That's probably where they met a little bit. But I think Vivek went to Yale as well, if I'm not wrong. And so JD ended up investing in Vivek's asset management firm called Strive. And I think Vivek funded some of his biotech stuff with Strive. In fact, I think Vivek stepped down from Strive because during 2020, they wanted him to make a statement on Black Lives Matter, and he refused to do it. And that's where he stepped down, if I'm not wrong. But this is definitely a company that was founded by Vivek. Very interesting. They're all connected, dude. They're all connected in some way. This is interesting, bro. What do you guys think? Do you think Vance is the right choice? Robin at 23.98 after hours, Palantir 28.72. Do you think he's the right choice? I'm still not convinced he is definitely the right choice. Got to do more research, but so far, I mean, some decent stuff we're learning about him at least. Even if we don't officially know if he's definitely the right choice. Vance over Vivek 100%. Strive distributes non-ESG ETFs. Yes, that was one of the big things that Vivek also ran on, this whole non-ESG stuff. Where's DJT? If you're just joining, DJT issued 40 million shares or something. So that's why it's down 10% after hours. A little bit too much dilution. Robinhood 23.98. Palantir 28.72. And IWM up a little bit after hours as well, 0.15%. Where's NVIDIA? Is NVIDIA red after hours? NVIDIA is green after hours, 128.65. Oh, Zucks and what's his name? Jensen. They're going to be doing a talk on July 28th. I'm going to see if I can stream this. AI and the next computing platforms with Jensen Huang and Mark Zuckerberg. They will discuss how fundamental research is enabling AI breakthroughs. That's going to be fun. Zucks and Jensen talking. I think Meta has a good earnings, dude. I think they're going to have a good earnings. I don't think Zucks is going to do the stock split. You know why I don't think he's going to do the stock split now? Maybe this reason is dumb, but if they do a 5-for-1 split, then they're going to have to lower the dividend from 25 cents to 5 cents because they can't give you a dividend of 25 cents a share if you have one share that turns into 5 shares, right? Because they can't give you 25. They can't give you an extra $1.25. So they would have to reduce the dividend. And I think just like perceptually, I don't know if they want to like make the dividend lower than it is right now. So I actually think they're not going to do the split because that would make it complicated with the dividend. Maybe it's not that complicated, but I think they kind of leave the stock the way it is and we surge higher to that 630, 620 range on Meta if it works out. But we will see. NVIDIA right here, 128, Palantir 28.73. Robin at 23.98 after hours, and then the S&P ended 561.78 on the day. All right, that's it. If they do a stock split plus they increase the dividend, yeah, that would be incredible. I don't know if they have enough money to increase the dividend. I mean, they do, but that's probably not what they want to do right now. But if they do that, that could definitely potentially be beneficial. Who would you have picked, Amit? I would have picked Vivek because I think he's more anti-establishment, and I think that's what people are voting for Trump. That's what they want. I also think he would appeal to a lot of Indian Americans. And I mean, there's just a way that Vivek would be able to capture people's attention. Also, I mean, just like you don't have to agree with him on everything, but like he's an engaging speaker, dude. He like grabs your attention when he talks, and he has balls. Like he's ready to like say some stuff, even if he says it incorrectly. Like he's ready to take risks. But I think he would try to upstage Trump, not because he wants to, do anything bad to Trump. I just think Vivek's meant to be the guy, maybe not the second guy. So I think Trump also realized that. And Ohio, maybe Vance is a lot better of an understanding there. Also, Vance is a politician. Vivek was never a politician. He was an entrepreneur, which could be the bull case. But maybe Vance has a much better understanding of how to get things done in Congress because of his political past. So that's probably why he went with Vance. All right, cool. That's it for me. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow, 8:45 a.m. Tomorrow's going to be an important day as all of this continues to play out, and we'll keep going from there. And I'll be deep diving into JD Vance and see what the connections are in the context of Palantir and see what else that means. He does seem like he loves big tech. I want to, not just the Palantir deep dive, I want to do a bigger deep dive on how he thinks of tech, because you need an administration that's friendly to tech over the next 4 years if we want this AI revolution to become a thing. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, that's it for me. Thank you, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys tomorrow on the next one. Bye, everyone.